wife's been covering up for you all along.
And to find a killer.
I won't let you live without me.
I know about your boyfriend.
What about my boyfriend?
He's dead.
What do you mean?
I didn't know. I killed him.
I often wondered what goes on inside your head. And now I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna take that piece of wood and bash your skull in and really have a look-see.
Kill her! Steve, don't go! Don't go near her!
Shut up! If he doesn't kill her, we're all gonna die!
How did she get you? Just tell me how to get out of here!
You can't, man. It's over. You see, you're next. You won the lottery, Jackson.
What? What are you talking about?
Just gonna get you, man. And it's gonna hurt real bad.
Hi, I'm Scout Taylor Compton from Rob Zombie's Halloween, and you're listening to the Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to the Hysteria Continues, episode 195. And this time we are Dead Dudes in the House. Oh yes, we're covering another of the infamous, or some say beloved, Nathan picks. So Nathan, would you say this is an infamous or a beloved or a bit of both pick this time?
I think it's an unsung masterpiece.
Right. Well, we'll see how we feel. So, Joseph, are you looking forward to covering this? Well, it's not exactly a trauma movie, is it? It's a quasi-trauma movie, I can guess.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I would call it a slasher either. I'd definitely call it a body count film, but I guess we'll see what I think about it soon.
Okay, great.
And let's just say that it is a slasher, and anyone that disagrees is a poo head, and that's all I have to say.
Well,
I'm keeping it mature.
Eric.
Speaking of poo heads,
poo heads, Eric, how are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm a bit tired. Otherwise, I'm okay.
Okay, well, before we get to the main attraction, as it were, let's get on to talking a little bit about what we've been watching recently. So, Nathan, do you want to go first? Is there anything you watched you want to tell us about?
Well, cannot remember did I mention Ready or Not in the last episode?
I don't think so.
Mixed up on that.
I think you were going to go and see it, I think.
Okay, well, I'll give a quick version in case I'm repeating myself, but I did go see Ready or Not, and I thought it was a lot of fun. It isn't quite a slasher in the way of You're Next, which I thought it might be sort of like that, but it's not. It's definitely more comical. It's more of a dark comedy than a horror movie, but it's just a lot of fun. It's an extremely fun movie. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give anything away, because there is some interesting turns this movie takes.
And apparently your cat agrees with you.
Yes,
it's very chatty.
Agrees.
Very chatty.
She wants attention. She's been attention hungry lately.
Oh, bless her. Talking of cats, I've got a few cats sat here. I had a vet out the other day to get them all checked over, so all right. So I've got Argento sitting here.
We all have cats, but I don't think you have any cats, do you, Eric?
Absolutely no way.
No? Oh, okay.
So is it a recommend from you?
Yes, it is a very high recommendation. And today I'm going to go see It Chapter 2.
Okay.
I've heard some iffy things about that one.
I have too, but the only people I've heard iffy things from are the people that were iffy about the first one, and I loved the first one. So
I still haven't seen the first one, so
yeah. So I'm very excited, even though it is 2 hours and 50 minutes long. I'm still very excited because I find Pennywise to be quite scary.
Well, interested too. I quite enjoyed the first one. But I always remember the Tim Curry one from the 1990, wasn't it? It was always like when I read the book, I always enjoyed the first half of the book more than the second half. So
yes.
And the same with the TV adaptation as well. It wasn't as much fun.
I was that way as well. I found the storyline with the kids more compelling and more interesting to watch. I guess.
Yeah. definitely. Well, let's see. It'd be interesting to hear what you have got to think. Was there anything else you've seen, Nathan?
Nothing I've seen, but I have finally been able to play the Friday the 13th game. The one that just came out on the Switch. But it's been available on like Xbox and all that other. I mean, you've played it, right?
Yeah, I haven't played it for a while.
Justin, and I know Erik has too.
Yeah, I'm sure you could beat Erik's ass.
Hey, I hate you.
Poor Erik.
Poor Erik.
Getting bullied already.
I know.
How dare you? No, you upset Daniela now. I hope you're happy.
So, but did you say you've caught you kind of like basically running into trees at this moment and things like that and tripping over?
Yes, it's been a huge learning curve. I think the first time I played, I accidentally saved it at 7 counselors, which is a lot of counselors to try to go kill. And I think by the end, I'd killed 1 out of 7.
I always find playing Jason is quite a big responsibility, isn't it? Especially that one time I did it when I was really crap, and and then someone sent me a private message on the PS4 saying you suck.
See, well, I've been playing offline as Jason to try to practice.
Yes, it's a good idea.
But I the first time I've only played online once, and I was a counselor. And what stuck is, do you know, Justin, if they're timed? The online plays is like so many minutes and then it just expires?
Yes.
Okay, because I got killed right before the time was up, because the second I died, like the game was over and there were some survivors. So I was like, if I could have just held out a little bit longer.
Oh, I'm trying to think. Actually, I'm not sure if that is the case. I think it is I think it is timed. I can't remember, because otherwise you could just go and hide forever, couldn't you? And just go to bed and go to work and then be still stuck behind a bush.
Whatever those things are,
cabin,
closet looking things.
Okay. Oh, and then you got stabbed in the rear.
No.
Oh, okay.
I actually managed to evade Jason for a long time, but he eventually cut my head off in the bathroom.
That's the unfortunately that's the occupational hazard of playing that game. So yeah, well, let's see how we'll have to hit me up for a game. Are you on the Switch? I don't know if you can,
I am.
So I don't know if I can play.
Can you cross? You can't cross-platform those games.
I don't think
know
so.
That you can. I think it's only specific to what you have.
I have played games with people who listen to the show before, so it's been quite good fun. But yeah, well, let us know how you get on. So anything else?
No, that's been it.
Okay, what about you, Erik?
No. Yesterday was my first day off.
Okay, well, thank you, Erik. What about you, Joseph?
Well, I caught up with the new John Travolta film, The Fanatic. I think you've seen it, Justin, haven't you?
I have, yes.
Yes, and this was directed by Fred Durst. And if you don't know who Fred Durst is, he's the lead singer for the rap rock band Limp Bizkit. And like Rob Zombie, let's just say I'm not really enjoying what this guy's doing. The Fanatic. Okay, I enjoyed The Fanatic. I'll give it that. But I think I enjoyed it for the wrong reasons. John Travolta's performance, it's very, God, it's over the top. It's misguided. The writing is really very bizarre and very just bad. I mean, it's just John Travolta is playing. I think he's supposed to be like on the autism spectrum, but he acts more like he's just completely mentally disturbed. So right off the bat, there's this kind of grimy feeling like they don't know what they're really talking about, and they're just kind of painting autistic people in this very unflattering light. So it's kind of hard to explain, but so basically John Travolta just is this guy who's very mentally disturbed, and he lives in Hollywood, and he's like obsessed with actors, and he kind of fixates on this one actor played by Devon Sawa, who's like a horror movie, action movie star, and he basically just stalks him, and that's the premise. But it just gets really, I don't know, it just gets unpleasant toward the end. It ends on a very weird note. It has something to do with pirates. I couldn't really figure it out. It felt like a movie that's kind of destined for MST3K rather than positive critical reception. So yeah, a thumbs up, but thumbs down at the same time. So what did you think, Justin?
Yeah, well, I kind of got your, in air quotes, recommendation for it, so I thought I'd give it a go. But the first, I think it goes some it's very kind of pedestrian in a lot of ways, but then it goes to some quite strange places in others. And it's the first line that John Travolta says in the movie. It's something like he goes into a comic book store and someone asks him a question. He says, "I can't stay long. I've got to go and have a poo." Which is not the kind of words I was imagining I'd ever hear John Travolta saying. But didn't have the distinction of earning something like $4,000 in its weekend of release or something like that. So it's strange. It's a strange choice that having this kind of somebody with autism with a mullet and painting them as the villain of the piece. It goes to some strange places. And considering that it was the director said, I think he said something, it was based on his kind of what had happened to him. So whether or not he had somebody with a mullet with autism who'd been chasing around wherever he lived, I don't know. But it's an odd movie. And to be honest, I kind of lost the I can't remember exactly how it ended, apart from seeing Devon Sawa kind of handcuffed to a bed, I think. But I think it was like 2 martinis in by that point. So yeah, I can't remember that much about it, to be honest.
You haven't seen that one, have you, Eric?
No.
Okay.
Is there anything else, Joseph?
Yes, I saw Brightburn, which is it's kind of like it's like Superman, but instead of Superman, being all heroic, growing up to be heroic, he's going to grow up to be a psychopath. And the premise there is just awesome. Unfortunately, I thought the movie was just very flat, very boring. I mean, there's no oomph to this movie whatsoever. It's kind of just, I don't know if the premise itself, I don't know if it needed to be popcorn or if it needed to be downbeat. It's hard to, hard to figure out there, but I just didn't really have fun with it. I was, really looking forward to the movie because I liked the premise. And a lot of people I trusted were like, don't waste your time. So I thought to myself, it can't be as bad as everyone's saying. And it's not bad. I mean, it's not technically bad. It's very well made, very well shot, very well acted. It looks great. It's gory, it's graphic, but it's just boring. And that's one of the biggest sins a film can make to me, is to be boring. And unfortunately, I was bored by Brightburn.
Didn't we talked about this last time, didn't we? But I can't remember who'd seen it.
Yeah, I think you had seen it, or you'd mentioned seeing it, and
or maybe it's Erik.
I said I was going to watch it or something like it. Eric, yeah. I know Erik saw it, didn't you, Erik?
Seek this one out. Thank you, and stay tuned for my joke of the week.
Fantastic!
So, yes, well, I think we talked about, I remember it being a bit underwhelming, but a good premise, like you say. So, did you see it, Nathan?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, well, it's your kind of... it's a mashup. It's not exactly sci-fi, but I know you're not a big fan of superhero movies, are you?
No, I'm not a huge fan of them, but some of them are good.
Yeah.
I like Deadpool.
Okay, well, fair enough. So, excellent, Joseph. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, all right. Well, just a couple that I saw recently. I find it's a film that I used to have the VHS of, and I don't think I ever watched it. Because, sometimes back in the day when you're collecting VHS, and there were films that you kind of bought and then put on the shelf, and you never quite got around to watching, and you couldn't remember whether you'd seen them or not. And one film that I kind of finally caught up with was a film from 1984 with Jennifer Tilly and Tim Matheson called Impulse, which is it surprised me, actually. I didn't realise until I started watching it. It was kind of an unofficial adaptation of James Herbert's The Fog. Although it didn't have a fog, there was no fog in it, but it was the story was almost identical in a lot of ways. That it's about a small town that after an earthquake, there's some kind of pollution escapes, and it doesn't tell you quite how it does, and infects the town people, who start acting erratic and acting on every impulse. So whether that be sort of violent or sexual or whatever it is. And Jennifer Tilly returns to this small town after her mother phones her up while she's after a ballet lesson and calls her a whore, which I'm sure you'd like, Erik.
Yeah.
And goes back and she shoots herself in the head, and then she's in hospital. And so she goes back with her boyfriend, Tim Matheson, to find out, and then they get perplexed by everyone in the town acting weird. But it's very similar, sans the fog, to the James Herbert book. So I did wonder if there was ever they ever got sued on that, but I didn't get a chance to look that up. But yeah, that was a fun movie. Also a bit reminiscent of Romero's The Crazies as well, I kind of guess. So have either of you seen that?
I feel like I've seen that before, but I know I saw something with Tim Matheson that sounds sort of like that. So I might have, but I don't remember anything about it.
It's got John Carlin as Jennifer Tilly's dad in it as well. But what about you, Nathan? Have you seen it?
No, I don't think I've seen that one.
Okay.
But I do know that he was in a very Brady sequel.
Indeed, yes. And you get to see his bottom as well in this for no gratuitous reason, particularly if it's gratuitous bum shot, but then that's the 80s for you. And it's also got Bill Paxton in it as well. So, so there was that. And also, while, Stuart's been away for the last week, so as Stuart's got a blanket rule, he won't watch anything over 2 hours, movie-wise. So I've been challenging myself to watching long movies. So I finally caught up with Mother, the one... Jennifer, what's her name? I can't remember the last name, but the Darren Aronofsky movie with Javier Bardem, and it's got quite a few recognisable names in it. And it's a parable. It turns out to be a kind of parable, for a better word, of Mother Earth fighting God and devils and various things like that. And it starts off as like a home invasion movie where what's her name? Jennifer, the one who's in the Hunger Games.
Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence, that's the one. She's this kind of young house or mother, well not mother, but she's a young woman living in a house with Javier Bardem, and then these people turn up on the doorstep and essentially kind of worm their way in. And by the end of the, halfway through the movie, she's got like a house full of about 100 people, and it turns into this kind of Kafkaesque nightmare. Have either of you seen it?
No, it felt like one of those Hereditary type movies where it's like too long. So I really had the interest because I think like Stuart, I don't really want to watch anything in over 2 hours anymore.
No, it was fair enough.
I don't have the time.
Well, funny enough, the other one I watched was rewatched Hereditary, and I saw say like a feel good movie to settle down with a bowl of popcorn. And I again,
God, what were you depressed last night or something?
No, I was only joking. I was just sort of saying it was kind of like the feel good hit of the summer. I wanted to rewatch it because I wasn't sure what I thought about it the first time, but I enjoyed it enough this time. But it is kind of unrelentingly grim. I thought it was, it's a good movie, and I still haven't seen Midsummer, so I'll eventually catch up with that. And the last movie I caught up with, which I didn't see at the cinema, because unfortunately, going to see movies here is there's some living in Spain. We do get some they call version original, which is in original language with Spanish subtitles, but they dub everything here. So apart from those few, and I saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood on the big screen the other day, which I really liked. But the one I caught up with, which I know you guys have seen, is Ma, the Octavia Spencer movie.
What'd you think?
Yeah, I really liked it. It was interesting, kind of where it was going to go. I mean, it was overall, I kind of guess the story is not exactly the most original story, but how it's done, I thought was, it was really well done. And of course, having somebody of her caliber on, and the same with Tony. Oh God, I should prepare my notes. But
Tony Collette.
Tony Collette in Hereditary was, having such good actors at the centre of a movie, it kind of really grounds it. And I thought it worked with Ma. It worked really, really well. So
what I liked about Ma is that it really you really think you're going into one of those From Hell films, and it really is a From Hell film, but it takes a really unique turn, I think, that a lot of those From Hell films don't take. So I was very impressed.
Yeah, well, you've been very quiet, Eric. Have you seen Ma?
It hasn't come out in Dublin, Justin.
Okay. So you haven't seen it yet then?
No.
Okay. What about you, Nathan?
Yes, I saw it in the theater. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I felt one of the complaints that I had about it, though, is that I felt that there were times that they could have gone and done something very shocking, but they never really did. There's a scene where she... God, oh my God. But then it doesn't really happen. So,
Okay, well, as I say...
Wait a minute.
What?
Joe, cut that part out where I said that. That's a spoiler. So, yeah,
it is a spoiler.
Put that in the show. I just thought about that. I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to spoil it for anybody listening.
Okay.
Well, fair enough. So, well, okay, well, that kind of wraps up what we've been watching recently. So I think it's time for the main attraction.
Okay, so this, Dead Dudes in the House, a.k.a. the house on Tombstone Hill. A group of friends have decided to repair and renovate an old house located in the middle of nowhere in the hope of turning it into their cool crash pad. But shortly after arriving, a strange and seemingly senile old woman is found to be lurking around the premises. Uncertain of her intentions, the group of trendy homesteaders go about their business, but soon find themselves up against a very unexpected geriatric evil, hell-bent on keeping them as permanent residents in her house, dispatching them in a series of creatively gruesome ways. But to make matters even worse, shortly after meeting their demise, their mutilated corpses return from the dead, determined to help their elderly assassin and her fiendish daughter finish off the others. And that was the very detailed plot description for this film. I love House on Tombstone Hill. That's actually the way I saw it. It was under that title. I didn't know until later on when I heard the title Dead Dudes in the House that it was the same film. But, I mean, House on Tombstone Hill fits the movie more to me than Dead Dudes in the House. It's not, I don't know, it's not really like that kind of like comedy, like trauma comedy movie. And it's not a trauma movie. So, I mean, that would, definitely be the reason why it was an independent film. But I thought that, of course, the gore is fantastic. I really love the scene where the character of Steve is being told by one of the corpses, like, you're next. She's going to get you and it's going to hurt bad. I love the warning that your death is going to be painful, just so you know. And really, these deaths are painful. She's a very brutal old woman. I mean, the way she kills them. I mean, she wants them to suffer for sure. But to me, it kind of feels like part slasher movie, part Evil Dead, because of the corpses, coming back to life and attacking and stuff. But I mean, in all, I think it's an extremely fun movie. I love how it goes for more of a Final Boy route than Final Girl. Now, normally I do prefer Final Girls, but I do like when a movie can surprise me sometimes. And this one definitely went, in that direction. So, the kills are just crazy gory. And to me, they're the star of the show. But great movie, fun. What do you think about it, Justin?
Well, I was again trauma. It's always the stamp of possibly non-approval from me. I think having grown up in the having seen a lot of the trauma movies in the mid to late 80s, and I remember liking things like Toxic Avenger. But as it went on, I was it just didn't work for me, the trauma shtick, for one better term. So this is probably a movie that, to be honest, I'm not even sure I've even heard of it before you decided to have it on the show. So I approached it with some trepidation. But having said that, I mean, I've been around the block enough to know that Troma had picked up movies and put them out under Troma title and say they hadn't been shot as Troma titles. A film which is kind of has a similar feel to it in some ways, was like Girls' School Screamers. So they kind of fit the Troma bill to some degree, in so much they don't take themselves incredibly seriously. But they don't necessarily tip over into that full-on trauma kind of painfully kind of, what's the word for it? Painfully kind of basically trying to be funny, but it's almost trying too hard. So I approached it with some trepidation, but I was pleasantly surprised, to be honest. It can remind me of a film like something like Doom Asylum, which I don't think would be to everybody's taste, but I thought the characters for the most part were fun and likable. I didn't really understand quite what the old lady was doing and why. It never really explained, with the prologue, which kind of reminded me a little bit of that, the scene with her standing over the dead body of her husband with her, presumably it's her teenage daughter sat on the sofa in the 1940s, wasn't it, I think. Kind of the scene in Deep Red, Dario Argento's Deep Red, when you kind of find out who the killer is and you see them standing over the body of with a bloody knife. I don't know whether or not that was a direct reference, but it's a movie that kind of seemed to borrow quite a lot from other movies. So specifically films like The Evil Dead, it definitely had like a bit of an Evil Dead feel to it. Also the scene where somebody gets chopped in half by a window sash is kind of reminded me very much of Superstition. So, but it was also what I liked about it, apart from a number of things, was that it was so gory for a film of its time. And the special effects were actually pretty well done for such a low budget movie. It kind of satisfied the gorehound in me. But some of the things I took away, sort of made me laugh a little bit, was I did wonder if there was, they were going to be planting a rhubarb patch out front. I thought the idea of having a house where you go in and once you're inside you kind of enter some kind of alternative dimension in some ways, where the dead come back and seek revenge on their living friends and come back as these kind of almost like not neon ghouls, but like very much late 80s, early 90s makeup monster sort of type things come back to seek revenge on behalf of this granny who, if I remember correctly, I think she's actually one of the first actors in latex, isn't it? So so it adds the kind of strangeness to it. But the things I kind of made me chuckle a bit was, again, like that bit with the old lady turning up in the house and then them threatening to smack her, as you mentioned before. I thought that was quite funny because it's not probably going to be your first reaction to finding an old deer wandering around a house, is it? The other one that made me laugh a bit was when one of the characters goes looking for, I think it's a character Mark, and there's blood basically smeared all the way up the hallway and all the way up the stairs on the wall and splattered everywhere. And she calls out and says, "Oh, you're making me nervous," as if it would be, as if it's kind of like this. All that blood is just kind of, I don't know what she thought all that blood came from. So that kind of made me laugh a bit. But so it has that kind of Evil Dead feel, hitting people with planks and things like that. I thought, again, for a low budget movie, the acting was pretty good for the most part. It had that kind of fun Scooby-Doo-esque feel to it, of people running around the house and getting together and sort of trying to get out. But I think the limitations of what made it not quasi-creepy with the idea that you couldn't escape the house. Once you were in there, nobody outside could hear what's going on inside the house. As, like, say, you enter this kind of sort of weird dimension. It meant that you did have endless scenes of people trying to open doors. And I think that stymied the action a little bit. But overall, I think it was a pleasant surprise.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. I was glad that I was able to introduce you to this film.
Well, thank you, Nathan.
What about you, Joseph?
The first 20 or so minutes, like when they first get to the house, they have trouble with a door. And that's just basically just setting you up for more door action later in the film, because they run into door trouble so many times in this movie that if you were playing a drinking game, you would pass out from drinking, how many times they actually have to fumble with doors. But as the movie went along, I was actually shocked at kind of how creepy the scenes with the old lady were. Like when she's kind of off in the hallway and she's silent and she's just kind of staring at them. I thought those scenes were really well done and, quite frankly, pretty terrifying at 2:00 in the morning in the complete dark. I was really shocked at that. And another thing that I really liked, I liked the idea that once these people are dead, she's like, I guess she's sort of claiming them like their souls or something and turning them into these like mindless, killing machines. And it really reminded me something the last season of Lost did with the main villain, where he would claim people that he would overtake. It just really reminded me of that. So I find stuff like that creepy. This is not a trauma film that I was really expecting to be anti-trauma. I thought it would be silly and, over the top, and it is in spots. But for the most part, I found it to be kind of jarring. I was actually surprised. I really enjoyed this film. I thought it was, really well acted, really well shot. Like Justin said, the effects budget was probably, all their budget, honestly, but they did a really good job with it. What else to say about it except for, I'd say thumbs way up for me. I really enjoyed it a lot.
Awesome. What about you, Eric? Is third time the charm here with you guys?
Okay, so this is a film that I had never heard of before in my life, which is not unusual because Nathan's always coming up with films I've never heard of in my life. Sometimes I've never heard of them for very good reason. Now, Dead Dudes in the House, or whatever it's you want to call it, the house on Tombstone Hill, is one that I did not like the look of. I had a look at the VHS sleeve. It looked like it was a film starring New Kids on the Block. There are 5 unrelated, quote, dreamy males on the front of the cover art who have nothing to do with the film, but they make it look like it's going to be maybe a David Dakota 1313 movie, which and I was like, oh, Nathan, why do you do this to us? Why?
I think it's absolutely vile, and I wish you'd leave.
But having said that, the film opens quite well. I mean, it has a weird prologue with the guy lying dead on the mat and the granny just walking around the couch, which seems a bit innocuous and doesn't seem to serve any purpose. But then once we meet the bulk of the cast, it begins to feel a bit Friday the 13th-ish, and I was beginning to think, oh, this could be good. Although it gets stuck in this groove of people constantly coming up against doors they're not coming up against them, that sounds a bit rude. They encounter doors that are stuck and won't open, and they seem to go to great lengths to try and open these doors, and we see extended scenes of people trying to open doors that are stuck and wedged shut. And so it begins to feel like the movie's more about DIY than it is about horror. But once the gore kicks in, which is just after the half-hour mark, we see the character of Joey. He's trying to climb back into the house after going for beers in the nearest town. He gets his hands chopped off in a really gory effect that would actually be right at home in something like The Burning. The effects are, they're latexy and slightly crude, I suppose, but they're very effective, and it's quite a gory movie overall. You whore! Whilst I was watching the film, I wasn't 100% sure why the evil granny needed to be a young person, in this case it's a young man, in unconvincing old age makeup, but as the film progressed I realised why they did this, because she takes a beating at various stages. She gets stabbed and hit with hammers and eventually decapitated in a scene that's very, very effective towards the end of the film. What surprised me most, I suppose, about the film is that I don't really think it's a slasher movie. It feels more like something like Ghost House, the 1988 Umberto Lenzi movie, was the first sort of influence I saw in there, or it made around the same time, so it's hard to say if it was an influence or not. But it also has a bunch of young people who end up in this abandoned mansion, and they're looking for a source of a strange radio transmission, and they encounter this young girl with a doll, and all sorts of supernatural shenanigans happen, and they begin to be picked off one by one. The film Dead Dudes in the House also has an air of Night of the Demons about it. The way that they're all trapped in the house, and they one by one they become sort of zombie slaves to the main evil character. And also, of course, it goes without saying that Evil Dead is obviously an influence on this film as well. I mentioned earlier the granny gets decapitated at one point, and it's a scene that reminded me very much of Shelley in Evil Dead being chopped up by her boyfriend. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Scott, that's it. And there's, even the very last scene, spoiler alert, where our hero, who's dressed kind of like Ash in Evil Dead with the blue shirt and he's covered in blood, stumbles out into the dawn, only to have a sort of a shock ending. Is very, very much like the end of the first Evil Dead film. Actually, the more I think about it, Nathan, the more I think this definitely is 100% not a slasher movie, and I hope you are ashamed.
You selfish relative!
Although I hope you're proud as well, because I actually really did like this movie. Quite a lot. I didn't just sort of sit there and tolerate it and think, this is passable enough. I actually really enjoyed it. As I said, the gore is good. It's kind of fun. It possibly has too many characters. I mean, I couldn't tell you the name of the guy who's left standing at the end of the film. I don't even know what the name of the evil granny is. Does she have a name? She probably does, Mrs. Something. Maybe it's Susie. Sorry, Justin.
The phony Spanish lover?
The only other gripe I would have with the movie is maybe it's a bit too long. It's 90 minutes, and maybe if it was about 80, it might be better. The climactic battle where there's sort of these two guys going up against the evil granny, it goes on maybe a bit too long. That section I find I sort of, it just became a bit tedious. But overall, it's a fun little movie, and again, that VHS sleeve did it no favors whatsoever. And again, the retitling of Dead Dudes in the House makes it sound like a trauma movie, which it's not, because although the film has comedic moments, its primary purpose is to be a horror movie, and it takes itself a bit more seriously than you would imagine from a film of that title. So big thumbs up from me. If you're a fan of things like Evil Dead, Night of the Demons, Ghost House, then seek this one out.
All right. Thank you, Eric. I enjoy hearing your thoughts, as always. So I have to say that there really is not much background info on this. I hardly anything at all.
The only thing I was able to find was that basically this was probably Troma's highest grossing film. I mean, which is kind of funny considering it's not really a Troma film, but that's all I could find.
What about you, Eric?
I don't.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Justin.
Well, thank you, Nathan. I couldn't find a great deal about it, apart from, of course, a few things was the British. I don't know if it was the same cover in the United States, but the British VHS or DVD cover that was put out by Troma in the UK had what looks like EMF or one of those kind of early 2000, late 90s, early 90s boy bands on the front, which none of them are in the movie. With their baseball caps on slightly askew, because the retitling of the movie, which is classic Troma really anyway, isn't it? Is like Dead Dudes in the House. You think it's going to be lots of men being bumped off one by one, but of course it's not. It's actually fairly equal opportunity. Granny's a fairly equal opportunity killer. The director, James Riffle, I don't know if you guys have seen any of these, but he made a parody of Night of the Living Dead, and he's with which he took George Romero's classic and wiped the soundtrack clean, and then redubbed it with comedic dialogue, which I kind of guess is a little bit sort of along the lines of MTSK. So I've not seen if there's anything. What that's like. A few of the people that were in it went on to be into some things. Is Victor Veiga, or I'm pronouncing it really badly, Bob. The character Bob was in. He was in lots of things, and I think he's still acting. And he was in things like Boardwalk Empire as well. Interestingly, for me personally, I thought it was quite interesting. There seemed to be, I don't know if they were the kind of gay actors. I think there was a couple of gay actors, or certainly people who went on to certainly non-porn, but sort of gay roles. One was J.D. Cerner, was Steve. He was in A Boy's Life 2, which is kind of like gay short movies. And Bob Moretti, he was... from what it said, he did an autobiographical film taken from the experiences, a coming-of-age tale about a young man's struggle with family problems and substance abuse. So interesting interesting cast. And I think also Jamie, the character Jamie, Sarah Newhouse is still acting up until 2018. So it's not a film. I mean, sometimes we get these movies that you can dig up reams and reams and reams of reviews and things like that for some bigger budgeted movies, but some of these movies are a bit of a closed book. So but then that's just how it is. So I couldn't really dig up anything else. Obviously the film didn't get a cinema release.
Now, Eric, what title do you like better?
Dead Dudes in the House.
What title do y'all like better?
I like Dead Dudes in the House, honestly. I think The House on Tombstone Hill, I like that title, but it just seems kind of, I don't know, kind of standard. It's hard to explain.
It sounds a bit like The Legend of Hell House, or one of those kind of 70s horror movies, isn't it? Or 60s horror movies. So it doesn't. It sounds classier than the movie is, if that makes sense.
It's weird. It's weird. The Dead Dudes in the House title. I like that title, but I don't think it fits the movie. Whereas I only kind of like The House on Tombstone Hill, but I think it fits the movie better.
Yeah,
because they broke a tombstone. Well, Bob broke it.
Yeah, Bob's got a lot to answer for.
He does,
especially with Eric.
Yes. Well, talking of Erik, I think it's probably time for what, isn't it? So.
It's my joke of the week. It's so great and fantastic.
So I feel that the change of title from The House on Tombstone Hill to Dead Dudes in the House was a grave error.
Oh, Erik. Shut up.
A grave error. Tombstone.
Erik, I love how much you love your own
grave.
I love how Justin told him to shut up.
He sounds like one of those girls when they go hysterical in Evil Dead. You know, when is it Linda goes? Oh, Erik.
Oh, Erik. That was a good one, Erik, though. I liked it.
Yes.
A grave error.
A grave error. So what do we have some feedback from the forums? I imagine they're overflowing.
Feedback from Facebook. Zachary Paul Franklin says, this movie was such a pleasant surprise. I had a blast with the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray, though I must admit that fake old people creep me out. It's a weird phobia, but movies that feature actors in garish old age makeup are my Achilles heel. I think it all started with Grandpa in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Graham Wright says, thanks, Nathan. Mitch King says, I really enjoy this one. It's much better than the reputation it has. The old lady is so creepy and it has a great atmosphere. AJ Anderson Yakukowitz says, pretty boring. Gouged my eyes out after. How's he using Facebook? Zach Lopet says, I watched it twice. Just couldn't really get into it. Seems right up my alley, just didn't leave an impression on me. Tim S. Turner says, this looks like some shitty boy band. Never seen it. But I guess I'm down for watching these clowns get slaughtered. Jason Limberg says, first, it's not called Dead Dudes in the House. Fuck Trauma's distributing department for releasing this classic House on Tombstone Hill under that name and then writing a BS synopsis on the back. Second, go buy it from Vinegar Syndrome and see a much better transfer of this campy masterpiece. Awesome little underrated gem. James Packman says, I just picked up 2 Trauma releases for $3 each. One is Rabid Grannies, better be the uncut version, and the other is the indescribable Blood-Sucking Freaks. I recall watching Dead Dudes years ago, but can't remember much about it apart from an old lady. Greg Wojcik says, stupid title for a fun, cheesy flick. Adam Claver says, there you go. There you guys go again, making me feel like a slacker, LOL. Shane Lambert says, what? Over on the forums, Body Boy says it's like Evil Dead and Night of the Demons, so not really a slasher. I think I was annoyed by it. Kodiak Jack says, absolutely love Dead Dudes in the House. I'm in the minority, but I like that title better than House on Tombstone Hill, which I find boring and uninteresting. How can that be, says, not the goofy comedy that the title and artwork would lead you to believe? The guys in the poster aren't in the movie. It was really dark and the acting subpar, but I sort of liked it. The scene where they see the old lady the first time was rather effective, but they sure spent a lot of time not being able to open doors. Yes. On Instagram, HPC Madden says, oh, rad, it's one of Toxie's top 10. Can't wait for this episode. Andrew Moncrief, 1987, says it's pretty good for a low-rent slasher. Shot on Video says it's great garbage. Lou Toad says the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray, and I feel like we're doing a huge Vinegar Syndrome commercial here, as House on Tombstone Hill, is a must-own. Riley Rott says, oh yeah, I love this one. Super gory and a lot of fun. Tapes by Dawn says, so much fun. I love this damn movie. Haunt Cub says they look like they all deserve it. I assume he's talking about the mocks again. And Eugene Weaver says, surprisingly entertaining and quite gory. The Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray release looks as good as I'm guessing this movie ever will look. And for slasher fans, this is an easy recommendation. And that's all the feedback I have.
Hey everybody, I'm Jay Bullington.
And I'm Keith Carcino, and we want to know,
have you seen this one? Have You Seen This One, aka Histo, is a podcast where two friends invite each other to watch movies the other one has never seen before. Sometimes it's a real movie treasure, and sometimes
it's pure cinema torture.
Boy, is it ever. Which reminds me, Keith, I'm still not done paying you back for Freddy Got Fingered. Oh, man.
So anyway, you may be asking yourself, what credentials or experience do these people have?
And the answer is zero. Zilch. Zip.
Yeah, we actually have no credibility whatsoever, and there's no no reason we should be doing a show about movies.
No, but we're doing it anyway. Besides, doesn't everybody have a podcast nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's mandatory now.
Right? Yeah, so please join our movie party. You can find us on iTunes.
Or Stitcher.
Or Overcast.
Or pretty much wherever you catch your pods.
Yep, and there's a new episode every 2 weeks. So we really hope you listen in because we really do want to know. Have you seen this one?
All I know is today's October the 31st. 31 backwards is 13. It's Friday, it's Halloween.
It's the 13th anniversary of the lawnmower killings. It's a crazy loose. It's prom night.
Hi, this is Tracy Savage, Debbie from Friday the 13th, Part 3. For the best podcast ever on old slasher movies, be sure you find Hysteria Continues. You will be glad you did. And hey, stay out of Crystal Lake, okay?
Every episode, we celebrate a classic slasher movie such as Friday the 13th, Halloween, My Bloody Valentine, Happy Birthday to Me, and Crazy Fat Ethel 2. The Hysteria continues, bringing slash with panache since 2011. Listen on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and all good podcatchers. And as ever, we always love to hear from you. So if you've got any thoughts on our next movie, then let us know. So anything else we want to say?
Just that the movie is fantastic. Those are my final thoughts. A fantastic film chosen by an anonymous co-host of this show who is brilliant.
Who? Erik.
I'm okay. I'm a bit tired, otherwise I'm okay.
Absolutely no way.
Hey! I hate you.
How dare you? No, you upset Daniela now. I hope you're happy. No. Yesterday was my first day off.
No.
Seek this one out. Thank you, and stay tuned for my joke of the week.
Fantastic!
Yeah.
It hasn't come out in Dublin, Justin.
Okay. So you haven't seen it yet then?
No.
I don't. Dead dudes in the house.
Yeah. Sometimes. No. Absolutely no way.
Only on a Saturday night.
I hope you've enjoyed Erik's contribution, because Erik actually was never here. Yes, we actually pulled one over on you, or did we? Leave a comment and let us know if we tricked you.
Yes, we were hoping that Erik would get day release from the Turkish prison that he's currently banged up in, but he's been having too much fun, so although they did let him out on day release, he wouldn't come out. So, unfortunately for you, but luckily he sent his thoughts from the sauna. Well, I think
what are we covering next?
Well,
it's Justin's turn, isn't it?
It is, and I think I struck a theme with "Don't Answer the Phone." So we're heading back to the early 1980s with another film which I don't particularly like. I don't remember liking that much, but I think will be an interesting one for us to watch, and that is Eyes of a Stranger. So, so I think that'd be an interesting one for us to watch and see, if we've changed our minds on it a bit more. I think I liked it more than Don't Answer the Phone, but let's see. So, what are we playing out with, Nathan?
It's the incidental music over the end credits. It's just very classy, and I thought this was a classy episode.
Well, fair enough. So, thank you for listening to the Hysteria Continues, and thank you to all our Patreon supporters. And we've got lots lined up for you. We may have had a slight hiccup, I think, this month just because scheduling conflicts, but we should all be back to normal going forward. So, thank you. And, we'll catch you next time on the Hysteria Continues. So say goodbye to the good people.
Goodbye, good people.
Bye.
baby, here's my thoughts on Dead Dudes in the House. They are pre-recorded cause I'm on my holidays in Portugal.